The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off.
Feelings don't matter, so brace yourself tight. He'll lay it down heavy, he'll light up the night. No sugar-coated tales, just cold hard facts. In the realm of opinions, there's no turning back. Listen closer, just walk away. But Aaron had to say it, come what may. Here comes Aaron with the truth untold. No holding back, watch the truth unfold. On the podcast airways, feel the righteous sting. You either take it in or let the silence ring.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. So we're going to start out as we do by saying to Iceman Jason, Mike, Tabby, Javier, Fitz, McShane, El Jefe, El Devlin, El Morty, to Billy G, to Walt from the B-Raw podcast, and to Kate, the Duchess of New York. Thank you guys for the support. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate that you guys like what I do and you want to, be supporters of the show. If you would like to also be a supporter of the show, you can do that by going to Patreon or to Buy Me a Coffee, signing up. It's, $5, whatever. Anyway, so we're going to get started here. First thing I would like to do, on the off chance the individual who left this comment listens again, Spotify did not publish the comment, but it did show it to me. So this individual goes by the name of Sam. You know who you are. I'm not going to put your full name out there because I don't believe I'm randomly throwing people's names out there. And literally said, why the fuck aren't you mad at the cops for snatching people who literally cannot legally be deported, not that that should fucking matter, off the streets and schools, you sanctimonious clown? Well, here's why I'm not mad about that. Because it's not fucking happening. People that have a legal right to be here are not being snatched off the streets and out of schools. I mean, yeah, they're trying to paint it that way, but it's not fucking happening. Are people being snatched up from places like, Home Depots and things like that? Probably. You know why? Because that's where day workers tend to congregate, and that's where a lot of illegals get their jobs. You don't go fishing where there's no fucking water. It's not a complicated concept, you smooth-brained fuck. And frankly, I really don't give a shit that you think I'm not viewing things through context, because I don't parrot your preferred line of rhetoric. So you are more than welcome to go fuck yourself sideways with a cactus, you smooth-brained retard. And frankly, that profile picture, you look like you're about fucking 12, so come back when the other ball drops. You want to fucking, square up or talk shit or whatever you want to do. Come back when you're man enough to do it, because honestly, you sound like a fucking retard in your little ranty post. I mean, I do appreciate a good rant as much as the next person, but when your entire argument is I don't see context, because obviously what I said got under your fucking skin, that's not. Oh well, you don't see anything context, and I assume that's willfully. No, maybe I'm not a retard that believes the shit I'm told I should be bent out of shape about, and I see things with my own fucking two eyes. Dumb fuck. Anyway, so that's something I wanted to address right at the start here. Just like I said, on the off chance, I don't think I gained a new follower with this particular kid, but on the off chance you are listening, I just want you to know exactly what I think of your comment, even though Spotify chose not to publish it. I'm sure it's probably because you said fuck a couple times in it, and more power to you. I'm all for freedom of expression, and you're entitled to your opinion. You're also entitled to, like I said, go fuck yourself sideways with a cactus. I don't give a shit if you don't like what I think. You're more than welcome to fucking move on. And speaking of people who I don't care what they fucking think, the big primary thing I want to talk about this weekend happened was the No Kings rally. Now, as I said before, and I've said it a couple of times too, I think I said it on the weather report or the weather view this morning, and ultimately the thing that really pissed me off about the No Kings protest that was organized across the country, and they're trying to act like it was some organic grassroots bullshit. It's not. It's an extremely well-funded, Soros-funded, backed venture. Data Republican on X has done a deep dive on where the majority of the funding for these protests came from. None of it's an organic thing. It's just the usual leftist agitators doing this bullshit. There are videos of people packing up, going from one protest site to another protest site to try and make it appear like it was actually more populous than it was, but I'm going to address things looking at it the way I do things. Even if the numbers they're trying to report are accurate, even if the biggest population count that came out was an accurate tally of how many people were attending these no kings rallies, which frankly are utterly fucking concepts, because you can't try and say somebody's trying to be the king when they won the popular vote and they won the fucking electoral college vote handily in both cases. It's not somebody that's trying to be a king. It's somebody that was dutifully elected through the proper American process. The fact that you don't like it doesn't change reality, you fucking retards. But again, going back to the numbers, by the numbers, if the accurate, at the outside scope of what they're saying the popular attendance was, if it wasn't, duplicates of people going from one rally to another, which I know for a fact actually happened here in Illinois, because I had multiple people say, oh, well, yeah, they were here from this time to that time, and then they moved and went to the next one, because the ones, and you can look at it if you actually go back and look at the schedule, they are staggered in their timelines in regional areas, everything within a short commute of each other. So you could be in one small town from 9:30 to 10:30, and then from 11 to 12, you're in the next town over, and then from 12 to 1, you're in the next town over again. So you could conceivably have the same retarded motherfucker at 3 or 4 different rallies in one day, and that was deliberate. That was in a deliberate, intentional move to make the numbers easier to fucking inflate. But even if the biggest number they're putting out there is accurate right now, you're looking at the most just over 6% of the population of the United States attended these rallies in a form of protest against the current administration. And the left and all of the mainstream media outlets are trying to paint this as some massive victory of the American people, telling the Donald that they're not putting up with his shit. Regardless of how you want to spin it, how you want to paint it, how you want to try and phrase it, at the most, you're looking at less than 7% of the country. That's not some sweeping proclamation. That's not some dominant rally showing how popular your movement is. It's less than 7% of the population, as in 96.5% plus don't give a nickel-plated fuck about your protests. You are not some grand sweeping gesture. You are just a bunch of miserable, angry fucks with nothing significant enough in your life to keep your attention held, who would rather walk around and bitch about the state of the world as if you were somehow effective. Which brings me to something else you notice. If you look at a lot of footage from these protests over the weekend, you're going to notice the median age of this shit is definitely past their prime. It's a case of a whole lot of geriatric fucks that are out there trying to relive their glory days of the late 60s, early 70s, when there's no war in Vietnam, man, and bring our troops home and peace, love, and all this other shit. It's these burned out old hippie fucks trying desperately to maintain some semblance of the self-image they painted for themselves, that they're radicals, they're the resistance, they're going against the establishment, man. Meanwhile, if you look at them, the vast majority of them have completely fucking sold out. They're living on fixed incomes, or else they're retired and they at some point bought into the corporate world. These are the same assholes that went from peace, love, and good feelings to fucking doing mountains of blow off of a hooker's ass in the fucking 80s. Were corporate raiders and all this other bullshit. The vast majority of the actual hippies kind of, sold out. It was plug in, tune out, whatever the fuck they used to say. Yeah, I'm sure one of my geriatric listeners will correct me on this one, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it was a huge army of old fucks and a bunch of morons who looked like they didn't know which fucking bathroom they belonged in, or, were generally confused, or paid to be there, because, paid protesters are still a fucking thing. There's still posts for it on various, Craigslist and all that other horse shit. It is a thing, as much as people want to deny it, as much as people want, oh no, this is organic, people are mad at Trump, and durka, and I'm sure there are some people that are mad at Trump. The vast majority of them are geriatric fucks who get all of their information from fucking MSNBC, CNN, or something else on the TV, because those are the only people they can still reach. Those are the only people that are still dependent on mainstream media for their information, and mainstream media is overwhelmingly biased towards the left. Every single test out there has shown this. So of course you get these geriatric old fucks who, the news wouldn't lie to us, TV won't lie to us. They can't say it on. I've literally had people tell me they can't say it on the news if it's not true, which has been proven time and time again to be a blatant falsehood. But you can't convince these old people that, because again, old people get set in their fucking ways. They believe what they're going to believe, and nothing you can do, say, or If you don't believe me, try and get a 70-year-old to fucking use an iPhone. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the vast majority of the time, it's like pulling fucking teeth. Now, you get some people that are a little wiser, a little more mentally flexible still, that will adapt and will adjust. I can say my own parents all seem to be pretty into social media, to a certain extent at least. I mean, I don't know how much they watch the news and stuff because I've got my own life going on and I'm not sitting there babysitting them. They're grown-ass adults and they can make their own decisions and they have their own, they're well within their own rights to believe what they want to believe. So I'm not going to go out and lecture my parents like the fucking retarded little Gen Z motherfuckers seem to think they're in a position to lecture the rest of the world on, because they're so much smarter and better and dirk, and they're all fucking these brainwashed simps who believe they are above recourse, above consequence. Everything they say and do is right, and the rest of the world must be fucking wrong because they don't agree with them. And you get this retarded sense of entitlement. And the one thing I will say in terms of the No Kings protest is it was pretty, vanilla for the most part. There were some incidences, and we're going to talk about those too. But for the most part, not a lot of rioting, not a lot of shit destroyed, not a lot of, violence against people. I mean, there was some, don't get me wrong. Some of it was glorious protester on protester violence. There were multiple shootings that happened over the course of the No Kings protest. There was one in Utah where one of the attendees at the protest pulled out a gun, shot some people, and then tried to blend back into the crowd and was taken down by another bystander until the cops came and got him. But he was definitely there as a protester, and somebody said or did something that pissed him off, and he just randomly started shooting into the crowd. And then you get at another one of the protests, there was a gunman showed up. Nobody, not a lot of information out there about him yet, but he was shot by someone else at the protest who was apparently a designated peacekeeper, because apparently when Antifa decides to act up, they decide they can, replace the cops with their own people if they're wearing a blaze yellow vest. And so what happened was we got one leftist clown who had a gun, who brought a gun there as a peacekeeper to prevent, MAGA from raiding these rallies and doing horrible violence, and subsequently saw another Antifa asshole who was open carrying, because it happened in an open carry state, and decided to blast him, killed the guy who had the other guy who had a gun, and also shot an innocent bystander because, say what you will, I've noticed that the current incursion of firearms gaining popularity in leftists doesn't come along with the more conservative habits of like training and drilling with your guns until you become proficient with them, where you're not going to do things like, shoot an innocent bystander. And ironically enough, I believe the gunman that he was, the Antifa retard with a gun who was shot by the peacekeeper retard with a gun, actually, I believe the gunman lived and the innocent bystander is the one who fucking died. So this person with no real legal training or any cause other than I'm a leftist with a gun and I'm here to keep the peace, and somebody that organized the parade thought this was a good fucking idea. Well, yeah, he killed an innocent bystander who was unarmed and just happened to be, because, apparently he couldn't control his shot groupings or whatever. And, just another prime example of why when leftists start talking about revolution and civil war, I just laugh because I'm not impressed. Now, speaking of Antifa, we're going to talk about some shit that's going on in the Pacific Northwest. Seattle's, if you remember back during the Summer of Love, they had their, police autonomous zone, the Seattle Chaz, and, they tried to police it themselves, and it went to a shit show really fast. Well, the thing about Antifa is they're funded, they're trained, they are, professional shit starters at this point. They exist to disrupt and inflame shit in these situations, and then it's starting to show. And they've been attacking the police in Seattle, and they've got the police on their back heels because, as for typical liberal shitholes, the police are pretty hamstrung when it comes to what they can do with these assholes that are actively attacking them and turning Seattle into a war zone fucking again. And it is what it is. I mean, I find it really hard to feel any sympathy towards the people of these cities because they did it to themselves. Their bleeding heart, liberal, permissive horseshit creates these situations, and then they bitch and whine about how it's always somehow the other side's fault that, their supporters, the people on their side, don't know how to fucking behave in a civilized society, but somehow it's always the other side's fault, and they've said this with the LA riots going on. They've said this with every instance of violence that's come up in relation to these No Kings protests. They say it's reactionary and they're being provoked by conservatives. Their actions are being provoked. It's justifiable that these fucking pieces of shit in LA are burning and looting and throwing chunks of concrete at the cops. That's all okay because they were provoked by ICE coming in and deporting illegals, which is what was one of the mandates issued by the overwhelmingly one-sided election that just happened. Was the open border crisis that was fostered by the Biden administration is unacceptable and needs to be repaired. Now, if you want an example of how hypocritical these fuckstains are, and I'm talking about the geriatrics that were out there before the early bird special having their No Kings protests, as well as every mouth-breathing leftist retard who's out there swarming cars, blocking traffic, assaulting people, lighting fires. The mainstream media that's encouraging all of this behavior. The ironic thing about it is, at the current rate they're going, Trump has no chance of catching up to Obama's deportation record. But since it was coming from the divisive shitstain himself, nobody had a word to say about it. Nobody said boo when Obama started deporting people with the same or less due process than Trump is handling things with. It's not about the deportations. It's not about any of the bullshit rhetoric that comes out of these assholes' mouths when they're in conflict with the cops. It's about who's doing it. That's purely all it is. They're not ideologically sound. They're not even ideologically consistent. They get told what to be mad about, and then they're mad. They're easily programmable little smooth-brained fucking drones. There's no critical thought. There's no critical thinking in these fucking people. They repeat what they're told. They get mad when they're told to get mad. They attack when they're told to attack. And it's never their fault. They're never responsible for anything because obviously they must be the good guys because they have whatever it is that makes them think they're inherently right and inherently just in their actions on their side. And then you get dumb shit like one of the things that happened at one of the protests in California. And I'm using my favorite heavy air quotes when I say protests. If I say protests, just assume I'm saying it ironically from here on out so I don't have to keep clarifying. Protest is their word for what's happening. It's not mine. But I digress. One of the protests out in LA, there was some fucking fat, stupid broad who got in front of a car and started beating on it and then was subsequently run over by the driver. Ran over her legs. It was a Kia, I believe. And, great suspension. Barely seemed like he was running over some fat, dumb bitch at all. She was laying on the hood of his car, fell off to the side, passenger side wheels rolled over her legs, so front and rear, depending on which angle of the video you saw. I have no sympathy for this dumb bitch at all. When you're beating on somebody's car, they're well within their rights to act in this best interest of their own safety. They are within their rights, especially considering what happened in 2020, where we were seeing people literally dragged out of their cars and assaulted by these fucking idiots as they were burning down cities over an overdosed junkie. So, and for those of us that are older that remember the Reginald Dennehy getting pulled out of his semi-truck after the Rodney King hearing, and getting the living shit kicked out of him on live TV. So, yeah, if you're in a vehicle and you get surrounded by a mob and they start beating on your car, personally, I'm all in favor of running every last one of those motherfuckers over. And I hope you got a car with a good suspension so you can get through it. And then there was another case and another one in California. Some 21-year-old girl's now in a coma because she was in a crowd. Somebody came up, was beating on this car, beating on a truck. Driver sped off. She got hit, got run over. Now, in that one, immediately the left is trying to paint that like the driver should be charged with vehicular assault and she's in a coma because blah, blah, blah. She was peacefully protesting. If it was a peaceful protest, you still don't have a right to obstruct traffic. You are holding people against their will in the name of your political ideology. That is technically fucking kidnapping, whether you feel that way about what you're doing or not. From a legal standpoint, you are fucking holding someone against their will. That's the long and the short of it. Stay out of the fucking road. If you want to claim to be a peaceful protester, you don't start beating on vehicles. You don't go out and the reason the driver of the SUV swerved off and took off is because somebody ran up behind his car, busted out his tailgate with a very audible pop. You can hear it in the video if you fucking watch it. That could have been mistaken for a gunshot, and the guy was obviously panicking and afraid for his fucking life. I don't blame him in the least. Again, stay out of the fucking road and you won't have this problem. You want to protest, stay your retarded ass on the sidewalk. Don't stop people from trying to get where they're going. Don't act like you're somehow better than other people and you have some inherent fucking right because you're throwing a fucking tantrum because you never learned to process your emotions like an adult, and you think because you're upset about some policy, you have a right to stop some random stranger from going about the course of their fucking day. You fucking don't. You're not winning any points for your side by blocking traffic and holding up shit and clogging freeways and making people late for where they gotta go because nobody has ever once in their lives been swayed by this stupid shit. That's the part that really gets me, particularly with the geriatric fucks who decided to come out en masse on Saturday and, show their ass and have their stupid little signs. I'm sure Crayola made a fucking killing on all the crayons that they sold to these geriatric bastards to make their little clever slogan signs that I'm sure they picked up from somebody. I mean, sure, maybe Martha's really crafty and it was really interesting for her to take a different spin on things and use the computer machine to print out some pictures of the Donald and then graffiti him with a crown with an X through it so he knows he's not a king. But at the end of the day, yeah, great. Stay your retarded ass out of the fucking road. You have never, ever, ever going to change hearts and minds by inconveniencing people, making them afraid for their lives, or destroying their property. I don't understand why these retarded leftist assholes think that's a winning strategy, other than the fact that they're fucking retards. You don't win hearts and minds. You don't change opinions through intimidation, fear, and assault. All you do is piss off people more. Now, me being me, I could go out of my way to not piss off the biggest segment of private gun owners in the fucking world. It's just, call me crazy, because I don't agree with everything the right does either, and anybody that's been listening to the show for more than 1 or 2 episodes knows that. I think a lot of shit that comes out of the right is equally retarded as the shit that comes out of the left. The only difference is when the right gets a retarded idea in their fucking head, it's not going to inconvenience my day. I'm not going to have to worry about them blocking the highway on my way to fucking work because they actually have jobs. And, they may write a letter, they may fucking do something to inconvenience me. They may try and boycott something I like and get it pulled off the shelves. At the end of the day, none of that is nearly as fucking infuriating as a bunch of entitled fucking dipshits who don't have anywhere to be, thinking they have a right to make the rest of the world stop and wait on them. It's like the no oil morons who glue themselves to the fucking road in the middle of fucking highways to try and prove a point. Oh, oil's bad. You know what else is bad? Having a fucking highway full of cars sitting there idling, not going where they need to go because your retarded ass is blocking traffic. I mean, not playing in the street is something that most of us learned as children. And that's another one of those things where I really hate about the helicopter parent generation is there was a time when the kids who didn't understand stay out of the fucking road took themselves out of the equation. When mom and dad aren't constantly watching you, you get a lot more instances that are like the start of fucking Pet Cemetery. Okay, maybe that was a little much. I mean, the little baby was, parents should have been watching better. That wasn't, like a 10 or 11-year-old that knows the car will kill them, still playing in the fucking road, thinking that the driver's going to stop, because obviously the driver's going to stop because it would be wrong for him to run me over because I'm the main character. I'm important. I'm special, and the world needs to understand that I'm special. So watching all these lefty retards get hit by cars and run over and, on the off chance that the young lady that was at that fucking riot was actually just trying to peacefully go about her way, in that case, sorry, kid, wrong place, wrong time. You should have thought better and not gone where a fucking riot was going on. Because that's the thing, I did have to run some errands. I actually went against my own plans and had to go out on a Saturday, and I told my wife I was going out to run a couple errands, and she said, well, here's where Facebook says this protest is going to be in Joliet. Don't go there. And I said, you know what? I have no intention of going anywhere fucking near it. So it's not a problem. That's what adults do. When they know there's going to be a problem, they avoid it, if at all possible. And I'm sure there were some people that were going there looking for fucking trouble. I'm sure there were people that probably went there so they could try and talk shit to the lefties. And that's your choice. Again, if there are consequences for your actions, if you find yourself outnumbered and you get your ass whipped, well, you kind of had it fucking coming, dipshit. But on the other hand, like I said, I have far less sympathy for the assholes that think their views, their beliefs, and their ideas are somehow more important than everyone else's freedom to go where they need to be, do what they need to do, and live their lives unimpeded by these people's bullshit. It's kind of like a video clip popped up the other day here of these two white liberal pieces of shit who are blocking traffic to protest ICE, and a young black mother gets out of her car and says, I need to go to work so I can feed my children. And these two sanctimonious pieces of shit have the audacity to lecture her, well, it's just a job and blah, blah, blah. This woman is trying to do the right thing to take care of her family, and these two smug liberal fucktards somehow seem to think that it's more important to stay out here and interrupt her from going about her day so she can feed her children than to, so they can make a stand to prevent illegal families from being broken up and deported. And, Tom Holman said it before this all started. They can be deported together. And it's happened multiple times where the news has tried to spin it as, oh, well, they're deporting a 4-year-old boy that's here for cancer treatment. No, they're deporting his parents who are here illegally, and they chose to take the kid with them instead of making it a ward of the state or whatever. So, realistically, again, I have no sympathy for these people. They don't understand the optics on what they're doing because they're fucking retarded. I keep coming back to that. The old people, I can kind of understand it. Their kids don't call them because they had shitty parents, or, they had shitty relationships with their kids. So they've been stuck in some, either, they're at home with the kids not calling them and not talking to them, or they're in some shitty nursing home with their kids not calling them and not talking to them. For whatever reason, they fucked their relationship with their kids, and their kids don't want anything to do with them. So they sit around and they watch mainstream media, and they watch CNN, and they watch MSNBC, and they get told they should be upset, and they get told that the resistance movement has to go against Trump because Trump's going to take away free shit from people, and Trump's going to take away, he's going to destroy Social Security, and he's going to take away everything they paid into it. Now, nothing that has been passed is going to destroy Social Security or take anything that's been paid away into it. Even though Social Security is a massive fucking Ponzi scheme, and anybody who tries to tell you differently is going to try and tell you other shit that's utterly false as well. But Social Security, they're not trying to kick people that are entitled to that money off of it. And realistically, anyone who tries to tell you that is utterly full of shit or didn't read the bill or both. You get a lot of these leftist politicians who are talking out their asses, repeating whatever mainstream talking point has been posted, despite having not actually read the bills that they're supposedly against, because they were told by their masters to be against it. I mean, this is all of it is theatrics. All of it is manufactured. None of it is genuine. The people behind the fucking swamp is a real thing, and it's the one pulling the strings in a lot of ways, shapes, and forms. However, you get these young motherfuckers who somehow think they're smarter than they actually are that are going to say differently. They're going to, oh, no, they're not pulling the wolves over. We see the truth. You guys are the ones who are durka, 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 durka. I'm so convinced that I'm amazing. I love the smells of my own farts. And then you get the old geriatric motherfuckers who think they've been around too long to understand they're being bullshitted, but they also don't realize they haven't updated their beliefs or their way of thinking since the fucking 80s. And they legitimately believe the news can't lie to you. They legitimately believe that whatever CNN or MSNBC or whatever their preferred outlet is saying is the fucking gospel truth. They can't lie to them. That's against the rules. Without actually being aware that there is no rule that says the news has to be legitimate because of Obama, once again, repealing the Smith-Mundt Act. And it's ridiculous. But you try and explain it to them, and they look at you like you've got a third eyeball growing out of your fucking forehead. And they're lost as well. It really is. It's just a shit show. And then, so that's the big thing that went on. The major talking point I had was, again, I wanted to talk about how all these geriatric bastards are out there. Again, maybe making up because they don't have relationships with their kids. Maybe making up for the fact that they're fed dog food 3 meals a day because they're in a fucking government subsidized fucking retirement center because they didn't plan on having anything in their lives. They were 110% planning on being able to live comfortably off of Social Security, despite the fact that inflation is making the Social Security worth less. The government has dipped into the funds, so it's not solvent, and they haven't really received raises commensurate along with inflation. So regardless of how much they paid in, they're not getting nearly the equivalent money back. So the government fucked them. They don't want to understand that the government fucked them, so instead they're going to try and blame the guy who's trying to unfuck the situation that they're in. And they're doing so because they were told that's the case. And, of course, the media can't lie to us. That would be illegal, which it's not, or that would be wrong. But there's no morals in these fucking people. They've been proven time and time again to be, when not complicit, actively involved in fucking bullshit. But you can't tell people things. And again, these are also the same people, you can't tell them that's why they don't have relationships with their kids. That's why their kids come once a month to let them see their grandkids. That's why nobody calls them to tell them what's going on. Now, I can't say the same thing. I mean, I need to put a caveat to that just in case people want to. I will put it out there. I'm terrible about calling people. I don't call my parents. I don't call my siblings. I don't call fucking anybody. The only person I call on a regular basis is my wife, and that's because if I don't call her when I'm on my way home from work, she'll call me. And that's fine. She worries about me. She wants to know I'm safe, and she wants to know I'm on my way home. Great. That's fine. I don't call people. I'm not a conversationalist in terms of, like, I'm going to call you up just to see how your day was going and then listen to you breathe for 45 fucking minutes. I'm not going to do it. And I like to think I have a decent relationship with my parents. I'm not mad at them. I love them both. I have nothing against them. I would never put either one of them in a fucking, federally funded home. I'm not, in a position where I could pay to put them in a good home. If they need, like, assisted living type shit, and I have to bring them to live with me, I'll do it. But, then we're going to have to figure out logistics of getting a caretaker in or whatever. But again, that's besides the point. I'm not trying to sit here and, work through my family shit for your guys' benefit. But at the end of the day, like I said, we got a bunch of geriatric motherfuckers who went out there to protest Trump because Orange Man bad, because TV said so. TV Box wouldn't lie to us. TV Box is our friend. That's our source. That's our connection to the world. Because I don't know why. I really don't understand it. Like I said, my overall impression is you got a bunch of old fucking hippies that are going for one last fucking hurrah of fighting the system, speaking truth to power in their minds. I don't think anything that's coming out of them is truth or addressed to the power, because at the end of the day, the powers that be don't fucking care. You're controlled opposition at best. You're a nuisance at worst. And ultimately, all you're doing is pissing people off. You're not swaying anybody's opinion. Nobody's going, look at this geriatric line of blue-haired fucks that stretches for 1.5 miles down the side of the road. They're right. I'm going to be anti-Trump now, too. Look at how passionately they're waving those Crayola signs. I'm amazed. And there's nothing wrong with going out and protesting if you do it without fucking people's shit up. If you do it without inconveniencing people to the point where you're not blocking traffic, you're not causing trouble, you're making your voice heard. That's how you build support. Look back at any of the civil rights protests that were going on. Not a one of them involved the people who were trying to make changes for the betterment of our society acting like assholes. I'm not saying there were no assholes at those protests, because there were plenty, but they were usually the ones, handling the fire hoses on people that were peacefully marching down the street singing fucking hymns and, unleashing fucking German shepherds on people who were literally not breaking any laws. Not our proudest moment in history, but if you look at the people who were legitimately protesting, who were making their voices heard, who were insisting on acknowledgement, who were standing up to be counted, they weren't doing it in such a manner as to turn the general population against them. They weren't trying to intimidate people. They weren't trying to demand respect at the point of a fucking brick. They weren't saying, hey, look, these cops are bastards. Let's stand on an overpass and huck chunks of fucking concrete at them and potentially, cause brain damage or kill someone or destroy their vehicles or anything else. That's the difference between the civil rights movement. That's the thing about it. It was fucking civil. And it was about fundamental rights. It wasn't about saying we need to change the laws to accommodate people who didn't feel obligated to follow them in the first fucking place. It wasn't about saying, you know what, I'm going to go loot these fucking stores because capitalism bad, because I don't want to have to work for what I fucking have. And yes, that happened a lot in L.A. It's very telling that the mall in L.A. had literally every storefront in front of it plywooded up when they heard that there was more scheduled protests coming. Every fucking major store in the area, windows boarded, and the ones that didn't get to it in the first couple of days got fucking cleaned out. You don't garner sympathy for your cause when you're acting like a fucking animal. I don't care how you feel about it. That's the fucking truth. You don't win hearts and minds through selfish, petty actions. And that's the fucking truth. It's got nothing to do with context. It's got nothing to do with, oh, well, this is wrong because it hurts my feels. That's the fucking truth. The truth is not subjective. The truth is the truth. How you feel about it is fucking irrelevant. You're not going to win people to your side by acting like an asshole. You're not going to win people's hearts and minds. You're not going to change people's ideas. You're not going to change people's beliefs by acting like spoiled fucking children. What you're going to do is you're going to get fucking spanked. That's one of those things we used to say when my kid was younger, and in context to some of my friends' kids too. And I say this, I didn't have to deal with my kid being a problem. My kid was a good fucking kid for the most part. I'm sure he got up to some shit that I don't know about, because all kids do. I don't have this misaligned idea that my kid was a fucking angel. I'm sure he wasn't. He's half a fucking gremlin still. He gets a little mischievous grin. And I kind of reminds me of when he was like fucking 6. And he's, in his 20s now. But I digress. That's not the point. When me and my buddies were sitting around and talking about all the shit we had to deal with as new parents, or, young parents, whatever, however you want to look at it, dealing with our kids when they were in their formative years. And to my younger listeners who may not have kids of their own yet, or they're just getting started, yes, you will do this at some point. Someday when you have kids of your own, you and your other friends with kids are going to sit around and have conversations you never would have imagined yourself happening, because there's a shit ton of books out there on child rearing and how to be a good parent and how to not raise a piece of shit, but there's not a fucking instruction manual. I say that a lot because it's the truth. You can read every fucking book written about child rearing and how to raise your best kid and how to, and you're going to find so much conflicting information out there. You're going to find shit that's like, oh, well, they need structure, but they don't need too much structure, or you're going to traumatize them, or you're not going to traumatize them enough. And it's like, at the end of the day, you do your best. You try your best. Hopefully your kid doesn't turn out to be an absolute piece of shit. But there are some general pointers that, like, my friends and I came to certain conclusions when we were growing up. And one of the things we used to say was, even though you don't want to do it, even though you don't want to hurt your kid, you don't ever want to see your kid sad or upset, sometimes you need to whip your kid's ass. And I'm not saying beat your kid. Hell, in some cases you don't even have to actually physically spank them, but you got to punish the little fuckers. You got to teach them a respect for authority. You got to teach them right from wrong, because if you don't kick your kid's ass, society's going to fucking kick it for them when they get older, and society's not going to do it with any kind of intent of caring or their well-being in mind. You have to present structure and discipline to your children when they are in their formative years, so they are not entitled pieces of shit when they are adults who are subsequently going to have their asses kicked by society for inconveniencing society and not conforming to the way society is supposed to fucking work. And granted, unquestioning conformity is never something I'll be a supporter of either. But, understanding your place in the world and understanding how you impact other people goes a whole hell of a lot way further in making you have a satisfying life than walking around thinking the world gives a fuck about your feelings, because it really doesn't. At the end of the day, there is a very small number of people who give a shit about how you feel about life. Your parents probably, unless they're pieces of shit, because let's face it, there are pieces of shit parents out there too. Your immediate spouse, your immediate loved ones, your immediate family, probably, unless you got some sociopathic, narcissistic fucks in your family tree, which it does happen. It's always sad when I see it, but it does happen. But generally, in the world, there's maybe 3 or 4 motherfuckers that actually care about your well-being, your success. And there's exceptions to every rule, of course. Again, this is a guideline. It's not a hard and fast, like, this is for sure. You will have X amount of motherfuckers that give a shit about you. And some of that's reflected in how you carry yourself, how you behave, how you act is going to determine how many people out there reciprocate. What kind of people you associate with will determine how many motherfuckers in your life actually care about you. There's not a lot of people in the fucking world who would say, I'm willing to lay my life down so you can have the full measure of yours. And again, like I said, unless you have shit parents, probably your parents, maybe your spouse. If I had to, I would put my life out there to save my kid from going through bullshit. I wouldn't think about it twice. It's not a question. If something happened where it was my life or my wife's, I'm going to make sure she keeps going. If something came up where it was my parents or even her parents, sorry, you guys had your run. I mean, when you're creeping up on eight decades, it's. I'm sorry. I love you guys dearly. I would miss you every day, but you had your run, and that may sound cold. That may sound callous. May not even be the truth because I've never been put in a situation where it was my life or theirs. But I'm a Gen X guy. I apply a logic to a lot of things that some people wouldn't. And wow, that got rambly. All right, this is getting kind of drawn out. I think I'm going to try and wrap it up here. One other thing that just requires at least a little mentioning here is, so Israel and Iran are going at it. Iran is not showing any indications they're going to come to the peace talks table. Trump said, sign a deal, sign a peace deal, blah, blah, blah. I doubt they're going to do it. We'll see what comes of that. I really, really hope we don't get drawn into some bullshit. Israel has the right to defend themselves. Iran has been taking pot shots at the Iranian government has been pretty open about funding terrorism around the globe for, a very long time. They recently got a shit ton of money from Biden. They got a shit ton of money from Obama before he left office. They've used that money to fund global terrorism because, of course, no, this money's going for humanitarian aid. We promise it's not going to go towards terrorism, wink, wink. The funny thing about that is when you give them a bunch of money to feed their people, then they don't have to spend their own money to feed their people, and that money goes to terrorism. So it's, it's kind of a stupid equation to try and write. But that being said, we're going to see how it goes. The Israeli strike was very coordinated. They said it's been in the works for years. They have, infiltrated all different levels of the Iranian government. They have sleeper agents in place, blah, 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 blah. They did a lot of stuff to take out Iran's nuclear program because the right's version of global warming is Iran's weeks away from a nuclear bomb. They've been saying that shit since I was a fucking kid. Iran still isn't a nuclear power. So, do with that what you fucking will. But yeah, I'm waiting to see how this one goes. If there's any real severe developments, maybe I'll do a special episode this week. I doubt it. I got a lot of other shit going on in the real world. So, but keep an eye and an ear open. Got a couple things I'm still trying to work out with some potential upcoming guests. We'll see what happens with that. Keep you guys posted. Trying to think, what else did I miss? Belated happy birthday to the U.S. Army, 250 years. That's why there was a parade, leftist fucktards, because it's been 250 years since the founding of the American Army. And yes, the Continental Army was formed before the United States of America existed. Before the Declaration of Independence was signed and ratified, the Continental Army already existed. That's why their 250th birthday comes before the 250th birthday of the country. Retards. And that being said, thanks for listening, guys. That's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord. Come and interact, be a part of the show. Buy the merch, support your favorite creator, or support me. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.